Hey, are you thinking about a move to the Space Coast of Florida and you're trying to decide which town might be best for you? Well, if you're thinking about Melbourne, you've probably also seen or heard about Palm Bay, since they're only 4 miles apart. But how do you know if Palm Bay is for you versus Melbourne? Well, that's what this video is exploring, and it starts right now. Hey there, welcome to our channel. I am Dana Weis with Real Brokerage LLC here in gorgeous Melbourne, Florida. So what is it like to live in Palm Bay versus Melbourne? Is there really much of a difference since they are sister cities after all? Well, both cities are only minutes away from our beaches as the crow flies. Melbourne actually has more beaches that are closer to it because you're closer to the Melbourne Causeway, and there are multiple beaches once you hit A1A, which is the highway that runs up and down beachside. Where the causeway hits A1A as the ocean opens up in front of you is actually Indian Atlantic, and the Indian Atlantic Beach with the 5th Atlantic Boardwalk and Park. But I have to throw in a little plug. All of the beaches are awesome. And a great thing about ours is that none of these beaches have the rocks that the beaches more northern of us have. So Palm Bay and Melbourne, they both sit on the Indian River, and as such, they have lots of great outdoor activities to enjoy: boating, kayaking, fishing, kayak fishing, etc. I actually just got my son a blow-up kayak for Christmas, and that thing is awesome. You just use a hand pump to blow it up, so we don't need like special racks on the cars or anything like that. We can take it anywhere we want to in the Space Coast, and we can launch from anywhere, which is pretty cool. There are over 120 miles of canals in Palm Bay, and I couldn't actually find an exact number in Melbourne, but around that in Melbourne as well. Brevard County actually has 9 named canals that connect to the Indian River, but there are lots of little waterways inland as well. Now, if you want to connect to the ocean and you need deep canal access, Cape Canaveral in Brevard County is our ocean inlet. And then there's also one south of us in Fort Pierce, but it's in Indian River County, the next county down. So both Palm Bay and Melbourne are right off of I-95. So traveling to or from either city is really easy. Obviously, the further you live from I-95, the longer it'll take to hop to the next city or next place you're going to. But even the furthest corner of Palm Bay is only roughly 8 miles from I-95. Between Palm Bay and Melbourne, and I'm not even including Vieira here, there are 6 exits on and off of I-95. The bottom line is that traveling along the Space Coast is pretty easy and quick. Even Orlando is only an hour away from both cities because of I-95, so we don't need to live in all that tourist traffic to enjoy the parks or the other fun things in Orlando. And actually, fun fact, the Space Coast beaches are the closest ones to Orlando, so people enjoy them from all over the world. But now that you've heard the similarities, let's go over the differences, and there are some big ones. Essentially, the cost of living is what I would rank as the #1 difference between the two cities. In general, Melbourne has a higher cost of living index than Palm Bay. Obviously, some costs are gonna be the same, or at least very similar since they are sister cities. Things like utilities, groceries, clothing, restaurants, entertainment, employment, and even healthcare. All of those things are within a 1% difference, so they're very negligible. And in my opinion, those are all the costs that I would really want to know about when moving to a new city. According to bestplaces.net, food costs are 99.1 in Palm Bay versus 100.1 in Melbourne. But utility costs are actually higher in Palm Bay at 97.7 versus Melbourne, 97.3. Interestingly enough, transportation is the other index that comes in higher than Melbourne, and quite a bit actually, at 6% more, 89.1 in Palm Bay, 83.4 in Melbourne. So this transportation number, it includes gas, car insurance, maintenance expenses, and mass transit fare. Not really sure why this number is higher, other than I've been told more people use public transportation in Palm Bay, but I can't personally swear by this. Now, housing costs. This is where the biggest difference comes into play between the two cities. The median home cost in Palm Bay is significantly lower than in Melbourne. The current median home price in Palm Bay is $226,000 versus $277,000 in Melbourne. So that's 18.4% difference. Now, when we throw in rental costs, which have gone up significantly this last year in both cities, the housing indicator is 77 in Palm Bay versus 84 in Melbourne, which is still an 8.7% higher difference in Melbourne. Honestly, this difference in housing costs is often why people considering a move here are looking at Palm Bay versus Melbourne. But both locations are great options depending on what your current needs are. Overall, the difference between the two cities is only 4%. Palm Bay is currently at 90.4 and Melbourne is at 94.4. So it really isn't like some insanely, huge gap between them. And they're both still below the national average, which is that 100 number that we're comparing these to. So that's great news. Now I'm going to talk more real estate facts in a minute. But some other differences between the two cities are population. Palm Bay's current population is around 117,000, whereas Melbourne is 83,000. So it's not a huge difference. But since Melbourne is approximately 60 square miles wide, however, the population is 1,808 people per square mile, whereas Palm Bay, which is approximately 88 square miles, the population then becomes 1,102 people per square mile. So, point there for Palm Bay. Personally, I don't think the population difference is really felt. Like, you can't really tell, like, oh, this one's super crowded versus this one isn't, except when you're considering traffic. Oh my goodness. Okay, so in Palm Bay, the two major roads are Malabar Road and South Babcock. Malabar runs east to west through the city, and most of the other major roads connect to it. South Babcock runs north and south up into Melbourne. Now, Malabar is actually one of the I-95 exits. Nearly everyone who lives in Palm Bay will say that the traffic either on, off, or through Malabar gets bad, especially during those 8 and 5 working hours. But I don't think there's really a time that it's not congested to some degree, to be honest. Now in Melbourne, we have Minton, which turns into Wickham Road, and that's one of our major roads going through the city, and it runs north to south. But we also have 192, which runs east to west and connects to I-95 as well, and then it turns into the causeway on the other side. Now, Wickham does get more crowded as well during the 8 to 5 hours, but the congestion just isn't as bad as Malabar. This is largely due to there being other roads that are used throughout the city versus needing to be on the one specific one to get to places. All right, now this is great and all, but what about what everyone really wants to know about? The money, right? Well, according to census.gov, the per capita income in Palm Bay for 2019, I couldn't find anything published that was newer, and I really did try, was $23,303. Now this number means the average earned per person in a given area. The per capita income in Melbourne was $28,776. So that's a difference of almost $5,000 per person. But honestly, I mean, come on, these cities, they're so close that you can live in one and work in another, and it isn't that much of an inconvenience at all. Especially if you're living close to I-95, because then you can just, hop on one and go back and forth between them. Okay, so now let's talk real estate for a moment. I already told you that the median house price, which is for the most sought after 3-bed, 2-bath type of home, is higher in Melbourne, and it is. Now the median price really changes a lot if you go up to the 4-bedroom homes. Melbourne's median is $425,000, whereas Palm Bay's is $260,000 for that 4-bed home. So there is a huge difference when it comes to that. And again, that is really the largest reason people are always looking at moving to Palm Bay versus Melbourne. However, as I'm sure you're thinking, there must be a reason for the price difference, right? Well, both cities have areas that are nicer and some that are not so nice. I mean, what city doesn't, right? So we're gonna start with Palm Bay. There are several areas in Palm Bay that have been built up and are newer, higher priced than the rest of the city. And in those areas, homes are selling for no less than at least $300,000. So those neighborhoods are gorgeous, right? But particularly, I have to tout on the Bayside Lakes neighborhoods. It's near the major golf course, and it really sticks out as a different area than the rest of Palm Bay. This is one of the few neighborhoods that actually has sidewalks throughout the community. It has beautiful landscaping, and it has great amenities such as the clubhouse and the pool, which you find a lot in Melbourne subdivisions, but you don't really find that in Palm Bay. Going beyond Bayside Lakes, there are very few neighborhoods that have sidewalks. So if this is something that's important to you, you like walking places, you don't want to necessarily have to drive everywhere, and you don't want to walk on the street, then you probably want to stick to Bayside Lakes or somewhere in Melbourne. Much of Palm Bay, it's an eclectic mix of home styles, prices, lot sizes, and because of the less people per square mile and this eclectic mix, Palm Bay has more of a rural feel to it often. People will say things like that. Melbourne, on the other hand, it has more of like a small city feel. And even though it has its different areas as well, right? It has a lot more gated communities and HOA areas by far than Palm Bay, which is another reason for the higher home prices. I'm sure everyone knows that HOAs come with certain perks, right? In keeping the communities nice and looking good, at least on the outside. And Palm Bay just really doesn't have that. Okay, so for those with families, we can't go without mentioning schools. Everyone always wants to know about schools when they have kids, and I mean, who can blame them? What I can tell you is that currently, as of the making of this video, right, the schools in Melbourne are rated higher than the schools in Palm Bay. And you can find this online, go Google that, right? Melbourne's elementary schools rate anywhere from an A to a B, whereas Palm Bay's rate a B to a C. Middle schools in Melbourne rate an A-, whereas Palm Bay's are a B-. And the high schools in Melbourne rate, again, between an A and a B. Palm Bay's are B-. So schools are definitely +1 for Melbourne. All right, now when it comes to shopping and dining, even though Palm Bay seems like they have a lot because most of theirs is concentrated into common areas, Melbourne actually has 4 times the amount per square mile, that is, of these types of things to do. Especially considering Viera, which is a part of Melbourne, it's at the northernmost part of Melbourne, right? And it contains nearly all of the newest shops and restaurants in Melbourne. There are actually 3 shopping malls here in Melbourne: Melbourne Square Mall, the Hammock Landing, and the Avenue in Viera. Palm Bay doesn't have any malls. It does have one larger shopping area available, which is called known as the Shops of Palm Bay. And it's really a strip mall. It has a Walmart, a Publix, Home Depot, Lowe's, things like that, and then some fast food there. Melbourne also has the great historical O'Galley and downtown Melbourne areas with lots of pubs and coffee shops and bars, unique shopping, things like that. And Palm Bay just has more of the marshy areas, the outdoor canoeing and kayaking and hiking and all those types of things. So if shopping and being a foodie are your things, you're probably better off choosing Melbourne. Of course, as I've said before, all of these things are just a drive away. But if you like being closer or even within walking distance, that's when it would really matter to you. Okay, so do you feel like you're ready to make the wise choice and come down to the Space Coast for a visit? I hope this video gave you some ideas about Melbourne versus Palm Bay. But give us a call if you want to find out more, and we hope to see you soon. See you next video.